Shabbos. He got.
Okay, I have a chiyuv to Rabbi Avi. He's not online, but he mentioned yesterday in the sugya we were doing a P, whether the P para is kechatzer nisach chazar masik, and he mentioned that how could he could think that why should the taina of what's your bread doing in the mouth? L'chari, he took the bread. So if you look at Tosfos, I didn't see this Tosfos until last night. Chav Gimel Lamed Aleph. If you look at Tosfos, about 4 lines down, it says V'nira L'ri. From the start of Tosfos, the last Tosfos on the page, V'nira L'ri. The Mechol Hanu de Masnisen Le'matzi L'mifshid. You can't be Paisha the Shaila from our Mishnah, all the cases. Le'maihi de Natul Charora. Mishum V'sal Kedaitach. The Havmin is Dem Locha Behema Peiris B'Chatzar HaNizik. If it took the Peiris from the Chatzar of the Nizik, V'achla B'Shus HaRabim, and an Eid B'Shus HaRabim, Oy B'Chatzar HaMazik, or in the Chatzar HaMazik, Chayev. In other words, if it took the Peiris from the Chatzar HaNizik and ate it in a place of Patur, or it took it in the Chatzar HaMazik, you'd be Chayev. So this is the half meaning of the Gemara, that you would be what? Mechayev for Lekicha at all. The Chenes Svar Noita, the Kimin de Pasha B'Lekicha, since the owner was Pashea to allow the animal to go ahead and take the food, Malonu Ba'achila, why do we care where he eats it, as long as he took it in the Rishus of the Nizik? And V'hadim Amtina Mistei Acher, Rishus HaRabim, Hainu Lekicha, U'mikumbai like going to Hoshit Peris Pipara, Chereshet of a cotton. It's speaking where the Chereshet of a cotton put the food in the mouth. That would be the Shaila, but the Chereshet of a cotton, but not the Lekicha. So that would go ahead and deal with Rabbi Avi's point. Okay, anyway, getting back to today's sugya, we're up to Chav Gimel Amid Aleph. Chav Gimel Amid Aleph, we're up to, Chav Gimel Amid Beis, the Mishnah, and we're getting finally around to Keren. It's interesting. We had the first parak introduced to us Arba Avos Nezikin, Shar Bavar Mama Veheve. According to Rav, Shar meant all the 3 things. According to Shmuel, it meant Regel. And we dealt with Regel. We had a Mishnah, the first Mishnah in this parak, Kesel Regel Muvedes. Then, according to Shmuel, Mava meant Shane, and we went ahead and we dealt with Shane. And now we're getting around finally to what? To Keren. Exactly what Keren is. And we know that by Keren, there's a parsha of Tam and there's a parsha of Muad. The chilik being a Tam Pes Chatzin Ezek, and it's limited to paying Meigufay from the body of the animal that did the damage. And then we have a Muad which pays Nezek Shalim from the Aliyah. Pays Nezek Shani from the Aliyah. So we're going to have machloikas in the Mishnah. How does one become a muad, and how does we'll return to the status of being a tam? Says the Mishnah, Ezel tam, Ezel muad, kol sheidu boy shloisha yomim, 3 days. The tam mishayachse boy shloisha yomim. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says it does not have to do with frequency; it has to do with time. So, if according to Rabbi Yehuda, if a shor would gore 3 times on one day, if a shor would gore 3 times on one day, right, then you would not be a muad, despite the fact that it repeated the act 3 times. It would only be on 3 separate days: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Then on the 4th time, it would be a shor. It would be. Rabbi Meir is of the opinion muad kisheidu by shleisha pamim. A muad is when it goes ahead and it does it 3 times. Remeir says 3 times. The tam kol shir tinoikus mishamshim boy bein nageach. If a tinoik will shepherd with it and it doesn't go ahead and damage. So according to Rabbi Remeir, it doesn't depend upon days; it depends upon frequencies. In other words, if it will do 3 times in one day, it will be a muad, and you don't need 3 days to pass in order for it to return to its status of a tam. If a child will play with it and it would go ahead and not react as a result, it will return to its status as a tam. So that's the machloikas in the Mishnah between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda say it depends upon days, and Rabbi Meir saying it depends upon times. Now we've in our journey through Shas, we've seen this concept of chazaka. We've seen this concept of chazaka. Is the chazaka on the 3rd time, or is chazaka after the 3rd time, on the 4th time? On the 4th time. So we saw Linyan Katala. Rebbe says, guys, it's the 4th time. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, Rebbe says it's after 2 times. On the 3rd time, be a chazaka. And his father, Reb Shimon Gamliel, said only after 3 times on the 4th time. On the 4th time. We said that we paskin like Rebbe, that you're chayish for the 3rd time. When it comes to katolim, when it comes to shilas of dinei nefashis. So for example, fellas, you remember Yavamas, we had a black widow. We had the woman who went ahead being married to her, but was not such a good thing. One husband died, a second husband died. One husband died, a second husband died. You're chayish for the 3rd time. You're chayish for the 3rd time. And on the 3rd time, we know we won't let it get married the 3rd time. Right. When it comes to Mila, we had, how's it possible for a person to be an oral at a later age? So we had Machloikis Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. And when one who was according to Rashi, his first 2 sons died as a result of Mila. They bled to death. So you'd be chayish not to do a Mila for the third son. So when it comes to Katola, we go ahead and we're chayish for the 3rd time. But generally we're chayish only after 3 times the Chazaka. After 3 times the Chazaka, we're chayish the 4th time. Says Tosfos in Daf Samechei in Yavamis, Masech Yavamis, the top Tosfos, Rebbe Lei Poligakra. We're going to learn Shar Hamud, guys. We're going to learn from a pasuk. So Rebbe, who's chayish for the 3rd time, cannot argue on a pasuk. He would agree by Shar Hamud, it's the 4th time. He would agree by Shar Hamud, it's the 4th time. El Kleimar Hasan Miskaimim Divrei Reb Shimon Gamliel LeMischazik El B'Chazer. Okay, so there the Gemara is discussing. So the Tosfos in tells us that Rebbe, who says usually on the 3rd time it's a chazaka, would agree by Shar Hamud only on the 4th time it's a chazaka. Okay, so it's a good piece of information to know. Okay, but those people who came late, we'll just reiterate the mission outside that we're doing the halacha of Keren, and we have machloikis exactly when is a Shar Hamud. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's a muad after 3 days, and according to Rabbi Meir, it's a muad after 3 times. According to Rabbi Yehuda, to restore your status as a tam, you need 3 days to pass, and it has a chance to gore, and it doesn't. According to Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Meir, if a child can play with it and it doesn't gore as a result of the child shepherding with the animal, then it returns to its status of a tam. Okay. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? So the pasuk by Shar is when it becomes known that the Shar gored 3 times, milk mol shulshaim, loyish merenu balav, and the Baal doesn't guard it. Shalim yishalim shar tachas hashar b'meis yelo. He pays and he keeps the carcass. Okay, we spoke about in Mashlim that you don't get a whole new shar. You evaluate. Now says the Gemara. My time Rabbi Yehuda Makah. Tamol is mashma 1 chad. Mitmol, the mem is extra. Mitmol tray. Shulshaim is tilsa. Loyish merenu balav. Aslan lagicha revius. That comes to the 4th Nagicha. Rava Amar, Timol, Milmon Chad, Shulsam Trey, Below Yishmerenu Idna, Chayiv. And you Chayiv what on the 4th time. You Chayiv what on the 3rd time. According to Rabbi, you be Chayiv what on the 3rd time. Okay, so we have Machloikis between Rabbi between Rabbi Yehuda and in the name of Abaya. Abaye quoting Rabbi Yehuda. Abaye quoting Rabbi Yehuda. Machlokes Abaye v'Rava. According to Abaye, it's on the 4th time. According to Rava, it's on the 3rd time. Now, Vermeya, my timer. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda, guys, it's a pasuk, right? It's a pasuk. The question is, do you dash in the pasuk the 4th time, or do you dash in the 3rd time? Abaye dashes the 4th time. Rava dashes the 3rd time. According to Rabbi Meir, that has to do with it has to do with what? With times, not days. In other words, he learns it's days. Now he learns that the pasuk Rabbi Yehuda learned it was speaking about days, right? And Rabbi Meir says it speaks about frequency, times. What's Amar Meir? Richich nigigoisa. If it's going to go ahead and go on 3 days, chayiv. Kir rigigoisa. If it doesn't on 1 day, like kol shekain. Madach on 3 separate days, you're going to say it's a muad. Certainly on 1 day, you'll say what it's a muad. Shekain amru, okay, kirin the kaisa. Okay, like kol shekain. V'yichad nigi kaisa chayav kirin kaisa like kol shekain. So this is his kal v'chomer. Okay, so outside, what's his kal v'chomer? If on 3 separate days it becomes a mu'id, certainly 1 day it should become a mu'id. That's his kal v'chomer. In order to understand the question, we have to go to the parsha of Zav. Okay, we have a parsha of Zav and parsha of Zav in the Torah. A Zav is someone who has a flow come from his aver. It's not zera, it's not semen, and the Gemara describes the difference in color and viscosity. And if he sees twice, he's a Zav. He has to 3 days. He has to go ahead and wait 7 days. If he sees a third time, he has to bring a carbon. But you see, it has nothing to do with days. It has to do with frequency. So Reb Meir would seem to be in line with the parsha of Zav. Zav, on the other hand, is days. A woman, if she bleeds for 7 days, she's a nida. The next 11 days, after the 7 days, is bimei ziva. If she sees 1 day, she watches herself the next day. If she sees 2 days, she watches herself the next day. If she sees 3 times, she is a zava. So that seems to be in line with Abaya. So we have or Rebbe Yehuda. So we have a Zav and Zava. Zav is times, frequency. Zava is days. Now, what did Reb Meir say? Reb Meir said he mixed up the two. Reb Meir said if 3 days it becomes a mu'id, certainly 1 day it becomes a mu'id. So obviously Zav can disprove you because a Zav, right? Even 3 times becomes a Zav right away. Says the Gemara, Amrulei, they told Reb Meir, your kal v'chomer Zava toichiach, a Zava will disprove you. Why? Sherichka ri'osav temeya, that if she sees on 3 separate days, she is a Zava. However, kirva ri'osav, if she sees on 1 day 3 times, tahira. So too, a mu'id, if it gores 3 days, it's a mu'id, but if it gores on 1 day, it's not. So in other words, how can you mix up days and frequency? Zava will disprove you, because Zava is a Zav in days and not in frequency. Amalehem, so Reb Meir retorted to them, it says by the Zav, V'zois tiyeh tumasoi, b'zoivoi. And this should be the Tumah, b'zoivoi. Tala hakosev es hazav b'riyos, es hazav b'yomim. In other words, outside fellas, you can't disprove me from Zava. Really, the kal v'chomer really makes a lot of sense. If you do something on 3 separate days, you should certainly be on that status on 1 day. Ayel Zava. I have a gezeirus hakosev by Zav to tell me Zav or not. The gezeirus hakosev says only a Zav is dependent on frequency and not days. But a Zava is dependent only on days. In other words, the svara of my kal v'chomer is a great svara. If you see a mu'id 3 days, certainly 1 day. You want to disprove me my Zava? It's not a disproof. Zav is a gezeirus hakosev, a miyut, that by Zav it's totally in 1 day in times and not a Zava. But the svara is a good svara. And the reason that a Zava is not a Zava if she sees 3 times in 1 day is because there's a Kosif, because it only exists by Zava, not Zava, but not to disprove the Svara. So Memela by Mu'id, where I don't have that Miyut, I don't have a pasuk telling me not. I can have a good kal v'chomer, 3 versus 1. If 3, kal shkein 1. Guys, good? In other words, Reb Meir is saying from the kal v'chomer that 3 versus 1, Madach 3, certainly 1. Fred the Gemara Zava, you don't say that. You don't say 3 versus 1. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Not because it's not a good svara, it's because the Torah said 1 by Zav, and a miyat only by Zav and not by Zava. But the svara remains intact. Mamela, I can apply it by mu'id, because there's no pasuk telling me otherwise. So Amalehem, Harioime v'zois tia tumasoi, by b'zoivoi, tumasoi b'zoivoi, speaking about a man. Tala kosev es azav b'riyos. Only a Zav depends upon time and frequency. There's a Zav b'yamim, and a Zav depends upon what? On days. Mimai the haibis now. Fred the Gemara Kasha. Now, guys, that's going to remain. Mimai the haibis zois l'mute Zava miriyos. How do you know? How do you know that the zois constantly mimai a Zava from riyos? That a Zava, if she sees on 1 day not, ema l'mute Zav miyamim. Maybe it constantly mimai a Zav that if he sees one on 3 days, he's not a Zav. In other words, fellas, if a Zav sees one time in 3 days, he's a Zav. What happens if he says on 3 separate days? He's also a Zav. He's also a Zav, right? So Fred Marakasha, why do you opt to say that the miyat by Zav is to take the Zava out of the ballpark of frequency on 1 day? Why don't you say the miyat is to take the Zav out of days, out of 3 times, and limit it to, in other words, but it's not applying to Zava. You want to apply it to Zava and therefore keep my Kal V'chomer intact. I'll go ahead and say no. Maybe the miyat is a Zav is only times and not days. It says, the pasuk says, the pasuk goes ahead and says, you know why you can't make that limud and say a Zav would not be a Zav in 3 days? Because the pasuk says, just like a Zava is biyamim, Avsacha biyamim, so Zacha biyamim. Okay. V'leikish nekevel zacha. Go ahead and make a hekesh zacha nekevel to zacha. Ma zacha b'riyos af nekevel b'riyos. You said also that, in other words, in the nekevel also should be in frequency and not days, only days. Hamir rachman b'zois. Okay, the Torah makes a miyat b'zois. So now, guys, what do we have? We have a hekesh saying a zav is both. A zav is both times and days. A zava, we have a miyat, only days, not times. Fred the Gemara, why did you opt to go ahead and say the miyat is to go ahead and take the zava out of re'iyos? Why don't you take the zav out of days? Says the Gemara, why did you see the miyat to take the zava out of re'iyos? That only a zav is 1 day and not a zava. Maybe it's to take the zav out of 3 days. Maybe only 1 day, but 3 days not. Says the Gemara, that doesn't make any sense. We're speaking about re'iyos, it makes sense to say a zav is bere'iyah, but a zav is not bere'iyah, right? You're going to go ahead and say a zav is bere'iyos and what? But he's out of the ballpark of yamim. That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to be consistent, and we're going to say that the pasuk has to memayit what? A zava from 1 day, but in achanami 3 days. So Mamela, very good. Reb Meir's Kal V'chomer is intact. So let's go over what we saw so far. Machlokes in the Mishnah. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a mu'id is 3 days. Tam after 3 days passed. Reb Meir, three times, even 1 day. Even 1 day, 3 times. Tam restores to being a tam when a child can play with it. Where does Rabbi Yehuda know it from? Machlokes Rabbi V'Rava, Abaya V'Rava. Abaya from the pasuk you can learn that on the 4th time. Rabbi, you can learn on the 3rd time, but they both learn from. The question is whether Timol Tilshem is the mem is darshan, not darshan. Loish Renu is the last one. But again, clearly a pasuk. According to Rabbi, it's a Kal V'chomer. Madaf 3 days it becomes a mu'id. Certainly 1 day it becomes a mu'id. You want to disprove it from the Zava. You can't disprove it from Zava because we have a Gezeres HaKasav to tell me that dafka a Zav is dafka 3 days and not 1 day, but the svara remains intact. So therefore, that's where we're holding. Says the Gemara, Hanarabana, Ezel Mu'id. Who exactly is a Mu'id? Ezel Mu'id. Kol she'idu boy shlesh yamim. 3 days. V'tam she'yu atinoikes me'mashmin ba. That tam that tinoikes should be able to play with it. Ve'ena nageach, and it won't go ahead and gore divrei Rabbi Yossi. So let's go over it, guys. What's a mu'id? 3 days. So Rabbi Yossi is saying like Rabbi Yehuda. Guys, this is important. Again, Rabbi Yehuda says days, Rabbi Meir says times. Right? Says Rabbi Yossi, in order to be a mu'id, 3 days, like Rabbi Yehuda. Tam, what did Rabbi Yehuda say? You need 3 days. What did Rabbi Meir say? Child play with it. What does Rabbi Yossi say? Child play with it. So we have a hybrid. Rabbi Yossi is a hybrid. Regarding mu'id, he's like Rabbi Yehuda, 3 days. Regarding restoration to tam, he's like Rabbi Meir. He's a hybrid. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, mu'id, kol shidu b'shleisha pamim like Rabbi Meir. Regarding chazar l'tam, he's like Rabbi Yehuda. So each one is passing like what? The other. Rabbi Yossi is passing like Rabbi Yehuda by becoming a mu'id. He's passing like Rabbi Meir, becoming a tam. Rabbi Shimon is passing like Rabbi Meir, becoming a mu'id, and he's passing like Rabbi Yehuda regarding restoration to being a tam. Some Rav Nachman, Rav Ad Barava, halach Rabbi Yehuda, b'mu'id. The halach is like Rabbi Yehuda by mu'id. You need 3 days. You know why? Shar Rabbi Yosi Moidaloi. Halacha Kreb betam, that to become a tam, a child plays with it. Shar Rabbi Yosi Moidaloi. So in other words, we're passing like Rabbi Yosi. We're passing like Rabbi Yosi that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda regarding becoming a mu'id 3 days, and the halacha is like restoration to a tam like Rabbi Meir. Amala Rav Nachman l'leima ma halacha Kreb Meir b'mu'id. Let's say halacha is like Rabbi Meir mu'id shar Rabbi Shimon Moidaloi. Halacha Rabbi Yehuda betam shar Rabbi Shimon Moidaloi. Rabbi Yehuda said like Rabbi Meir 3 times. Rabbi Yehuda said restoration 3 days. So why do you opt to go to Rabbi Yosi rather than Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai? So Rabbi Nachman told him, "Anok Rabbi Yosi Sfirolei, Rabbi Yosi Nemuka Imai." One of our rules in Shas is what? Rabbi Yosi Nemuka Imai, his svaris, he'll bring rayas to everything he says, and therefore the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi. Versus Rabbi Shimon, that the Gemara tells us fellas in Masechta Eruvin that the halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon. Loss of love, it might be like Rabbi Shimon. Like Beis Shammai in the future, it's going to be like Shimon. Svarim say that Beis Shammai in the future, the halacha is not going to be like Beis Shammai. Loss of love, so maybe the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon as well. Says the Svarim, maybe. But again, regarding Psak in this world now, the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so we have a Psak. We have a Psak. In order to become a tam, a mu'id, 3 days. According to become a tam, a child plays with it and it doesn't chepas with it and it doesn't gore. Okay, the Gemara is going to be following Shaila now. Interesting Shaila. We're passing like 3 days, correct? Guys, so now that's the given, 3 days. Iboilahu. Shloisha yomim the katani, the 3 days, liyude tura, is it to make the shor into a mu'id? Or liyude gavra, was it to make the owner into a mu'id? L'may nafkamina, the yasi tilsa kite sade b'chad yuma. 3 Eidim come in 1 day. If you say the purpose is to make the axe into a mu'id, miyade, pirish. 3 Eidim come on Wednesday, and they say the shor gored on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Okay, so you have 3 days of the shor goring. You have edis to that fact, so it'll make it a mu'id. However, v'yam l'yudei gavra, he won't become a mu'id. Neima Omar, he could say to them, Hashlehu the Kamasadi be. I'm finding about this for the first time. In other words, you're telling me that my shor good Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I was never warned. Now you're coming and telling me on 1 day, on Wednesday, that was right, then the shor will not be a mu'id. If you're telling me it's a din in the shor, in Achinami, once we've established the shor is a nakram 3 times, then it will be the Eidim Kam, who you pay Nesek Shalim on the 4th time. However, if according to the going on the person would have to have three days of being warned, right? They have to have 3 days to give him a chance to watch the animal. You're coming on 1 day, you're saying it happened. That's not going to do the job. That's the Gemara Shaila. Tashma, let's be pushed to the Shaila. We're going to have a long winded brisa, and we're going to be pushed at the end of the Shaila. Tashma. Ein ashar nasa mu'id at sheyidu boy b'fnei bailim b'fnei bezdin. Shor what is nasa mu'id does not become a mu'id until sheyidu boy bailim b'fnei bezdin. It says, well, who would be bolov? It's mashma, it's guys, a lashon of edus. For who would, the lashon of, it's ayin dalid, the shorish is aid. You need a din of edus and bezdin over here. So you need what? You need, the shor does not become a mu'id until it's warned in front of the bailim b'fnei bezdin. He the boy b'fnei bezdin, shloi b'fnei bailim. They go to bezdin, but the baal's not there. B'fnei bailim, shloi b'fnei bezdin. Ein nasa mu'id at she the boy b'fnei bezdin, b'fnei bailim. Okay? The Rishonim discuss why they repeated the line the second time. Okay, now we notice the din of Eidim Zaymim, fellas. Eidim Zaymim is that how could you have said Eidis, you were with us, and therefore what you plan to do to the person is going to happen to you. In order for Eidim Zaymim to come Eidim Zaymim, they would have to go ahead and be 1 kat Eidis, right? 1 kat Eidis. So now, if Eidim come and they say the shor gored on Sunday, a second pair come gored on Monday, third pair come and said on Tuesday. In order to pay Nesek Shalem, you're going to have to wait for the 3rd pair, right? Because it's not for the first one. The they're going to pay what? They're going to pay Chatzi Nesek because because that's what they were chayiv him. But in order to be chayiv Nesek Shalem, it's 3 Eidos. Says the Gemara. You have 3 separate Eidos. They're considered 1 Eidos regarding the Pasha of Eidim Zayim. Nimsakat Rishonim Zayim Mes. If you find the first one what that is the first cut of the 3 to be Eidim Zayim, who the owner is going to be parted from Nesek Shalem, Beheim Peturim, and they're going to be parted from Nesek Shalem. They'll be Chayiv Chatzi Nesek, guys. One group is Chayiv Chatzi Nesek, right? If you come along and you say that you shor gored, you be Chayiv Chatzi Nesek. Nezek Sholem would take all three as one group, and that's the discussion over here. Nezek Sholem is three as one group. Rabbi Avi, listen to the shir. I brought down the kasha from yesterday. I found the Toysus that deals with it. Okay, listen to the beginning of the shir. Says the Gemara, if you find the second kat as Eidim Zoymim, Harikan Edesach, still someone Edis. For who part of the Paturim from Nezek Sholem? Nimsa kat Shlishis, Zoymim is Kulach Hayav Nebichayv Nezek Sholem, right? Now, what does this have to do with our shaila? Whether Ayude Gav or Ayude Gav? Bishlam, you're going to tell me they're coming to the May Amid Bays, the axe on that's very good. You're very good. You could say that they come. If they're coming on one day, correct? They're coming on one day, and it makes sense that you establish the shar, because we said the shar depends on. You don't care about the owner here. You're only focusing on the shar, and you have Edis that the shar go in 3 days. So they come on one day, right? They're coming on one day. L'chayra, they're coming on one day. If they're coming on one day, they're saying Edis, and you're gonna be Chayiv Nezek Shalem. It must be why? Because the purpose is to be Yayid Aks. Aliyah Meliyude Gavra. If you tell me the purpose is for the man, Lemra Hanach Kamoy. Let the earlier guy say, right? Let the Lemra Kamoy. Anon mi have yadinon the basa shleisha yume asahani miyadile. They come in 3 separate days. How would I know that this person would come and say this? In other words, when I said on Sunday, I had no idea a person's coming on Monday. When the second group said on Monday, I had no idea a person's coming on what? In other words, if you're telling me that in order to go ahead and be miyai the person, right, then you would need 3 separate days. Because the guy can taina on one day, what could he say? He could say, hey, I never knew that I was warned. I was never warned. So to be miyayid the owner, you need 3 separate days. Good? So now, what would our case be? If it's speaking to miyayid the owner, it comes on 3 separate days. In other words, from the question, we can establish how exactly the edus took place, right? From the question, we can establish how it took place. Good? So, if you're telling me that it's miyayid the shar, it could be they came on one day. We don't care when they come. We really don't care when they come, because it's purposely miyayid the shar. But if it's for the purpose of going ahead and getting the owner would have to be on 3 separate days, because if it was on one day, the owner can taina, 1 second, no, I was never warned. Good? So 3 separate days. Now, 3 separate days, groups 1 and 2 can say, I never knew 3 was going to come. 1 can say, I never knew 2 was to come. So how can you mechayiv me Nezek Shalem? In other words, the pash of Kasha Zomam is, you do to this person what you plan to do. If I come with Benji as Adis on Sunday, I had no idea that Kenny and Lenny are coming on Tuesday, or Ari and Heshi are coming on Wednesday. I know none of that. So you can't tell me I'm behind Nezek Shalem. Bishlem, if it's in the axe. So it's in the axe. In L'chaira, the axe, you have Adis come, and it's not for the person, so Mamela. But if you're telling me it's what? It's in the person have to be 3 separate days, you have a problem.
Couldn't you say that on one day also, 3 separate times?
Let's see. Amar Ravashi, and Mr. Shmaitz Kamed Rav Kahana, V'amali Ulayude Tura Minicha. Is it 1 second? Lema Hanech Basroi, Anon Mino Yedina Dechol Dekoi Beidino Lasude Betura Kosi, Anon Lechiyuvi Gavra Palma Niskasinon. Right? When we came to say Adis, we came to go ahead and get the axe. We don't want to get the owner. We want to be Chaim Chatzin Nezek. We had no way of knowing that other people are coming to Minchayev. In other words, we have no. What do you mean? Even if it's going to be on one day, guys, even on one day, your question, Rav, even on one day, how do I know that what's going to come after me? That's really your question. So the same thing over here. Even if you're going to tell me that it's it's to establish the axe as a mu'id, it still doesn't work. Why? Because when we came in the morning at 10 o'clock, we didn't know it was going to be at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. We had no way of knowing. So also it doesn't, no, it's a kasha, not a kasha. So no, that's not a kasha. That's not a kasha, because I can say it's speaking about what? They come a ramze remuze. That they're going ahead on and they are being maramis to each other. In other words, the 10 o'clock Adam see the 11 o'clock Adam in the waiting room, they give them a little wink. In other words, you see they're in cahoots. So in other words, if they're coming on the same day for an ox, I'm not worried about. They see they're in cahoots. Rav Ashi Amar Keshavor with Sufim, they come one after the other, they're coming right after each other. Ravina Amar Ravina says a bigger chiddush. Makirin balashor, they makirin at balashor, they're makir the balashor, and they're not makir the shor. So Rashi holds that if you made it on the Torah, then it works out because he knows about the first and the second. In other words, they're coming to go ahead. What? They know that this owner has taurus. What's the owner's taurus? He knows that his ox. They know one second. Did you hear about Lazar's ox? Sunday, he was established that he was a muad. Hey, next day, they established that he was a Gora. Monday, hey, did you hear about Lazar's ox? You know what? They established that he was a muad. Second time. So they know about me. So now when the third pair come, obviously, in other words, since it's known that this is the third time, therefore they can't tie that that was only Chatzi Nezek. Therefore, but they're not makir the shor. Fred the Gemara. I mean, not makir the shor. They don't know who the shor is. Right? The army touring. How can they? In other words, if they're not makir the shor, so they can't say they're being testifying right on the. If they're not guys, if they makir the shor, you could say that they're testifying on the shor, and the shor is chayiv only maybe from the migufoy. But if they're not testifying on the shor, only the person, then it's nezek shalim. Fred the Gemara. If they don't know who the shor is, how can they testify at all? Fred the Gemara. If they don't know who the shor is, how can they make it a muad? In other words, you have to make a shor a muad. How can you make a shor a muad? It says you have. Can this guy possibly have a shor muad if he doesn't know who the shor which is to watch? You want to say the case of it must be that it's to get the shor, not the guy. Why? What's it speaking about? So we have three ways. They're winking to each other. They come with sufim. So clearly they know that they're getting the shor. Clearly know they're getting the shor. Again, if it's on one day for l'cher, it's if it's on one day, it must be on 3 separate days to get the owner. Even if they're going to say Reb Avi on one day, the owner can taina, I was never warned. In other words, answer to your question. Legabe the Edis, we don't have a shaila 1 day or 3 separate days. Only regarding the owner would it be a shaila. In other words, that you want to know why by the owner can't be on 1 day? Because he can taina what? I never knew. So therefore, it has to be 3 separate days. Good? Establish that? Good. So now, what's our case? It must be that they're coming to get the shor and not the owner. Fred the Gemara, why do you say that? Maybe the Edis can taina. 1 second, I didn't know. Says the Gemara, no. They meramis to each other, they wink to each other. 2, they came one right after each other. And now a third pshat. Third pshat is, how do you know? Is because the third Edis said the following. We know that this fellow has a shor in Lazim, it has a shor nachan. We know 1 day, 2 days. Now we're in the third day. Fred the Gemara kasha. And so therefore, obviously they know that if he had a short time 2 days in a row, it must be the testifying right on Nezek Shalim. Fred the Gemara kasha, how could he watch his shor if you don't know what the shor is? Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. Ravina Amar Makiris Balashar Makiris Ashar. How can you make a muad? In other words, they know who the shor is, and how can you watch it? The Amrei Torah Nachona Istacha B'Bcharcha. You have a shor that is a nachon among your herd. You have to watch the whole herd. You have to watch the whole herd. And therefore, that's how he can make. Okay, so l'chayra, if we were paishet the shaila, it has to be that the purpose of is to go ahead and warn the ox owner the ox rather than the owner. Because in that case, you wouldn't have our brisa. What did our brisa say? That these Edim are going to pay what? Are going to pay Nezek Shalim. These Edim are going to pay Nezek Shalim. So it must be they were coming to get the ox. Because to get the owner could kind of listen. If I didn't know I didn't know that on 1 day, I didn't know it was going to come. So it must be on 3 separate days. So it's on 3 separate days, right? Then if it's they can taina, how do I know that what was going to happen? I didn't know that the guy was going to come 3 separate days. So it must be they came on 1 day. 1 day, the only way to make it into a muad would be 1 day on the ox. Right, the Gemara, even on one day you have a problem, right? One day you have a problem, right? L'chayra, they can say, I didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. On that problem, the Gemara answers either they did know they winked to each other, two, they came one after the other, or three, they came to go ahead and testify on an Nezek Sholem because they said, we know you have an existing two-time offender. Does that make sense? And therefore we place the shaila that what that it must be to be made on the ox and not the person. Okay, let's finish up. Says the Gemara. So we saw the Gemara in the Mishnah and Sanhedrin. If you incite an animal to go, you are a groma ben nizakin. You caused the right? That's what we saw. So iboilu hamashasa kalbo shel chaveroi bichaveroi. So Ruvain has a dog, and Shimon is mishasa Ruvain's dogs to bite Levi. Mahu mishasa vadei pata. Okay, so Shimon is vadei pata because he's goyrim. He's a goyrim. Balkel of mai. What about Ruvain? Mi aminon matzi amalei. Levi could tell Ruvain anom mai avdina lei. And Ruvain could tell Levi, what did I do to you? Shimon is the one who incited my dog. What did I do to you? Levi could tell Ruvain, keeping the yadat, the kalbacha, the mishasile, mishaste, since you knew your dog was capable of being incited and it was incited, then you are what? You're chai for keeping it around. We know that. I don't know that, but when you hear the word pit bull, well, there's a difference between watching a pit bull and a chihuahua. You don't have to be a goyim to realize there's a more severe danger associated with a pit bull than there is with a chihuahua. So therefore, l'chayra, it's a no-brainer. So you had a dog that easily could go ahead on and be incited. If that dog easily can be incited, then you should have been careful. So again, what's the case? Ruvain, Shimon, Levi. Ruvain owns a dog. Shimon's incited. Levi is a nizik. He's damaged. Good. Shimon incites Ruvain's dog. Shimon is off the hook, bidei adam, because of grama. Is Ruvain on the hook? One time, Ruvain can say, listen, I didn't do anything. It was Shimon that incited it, so he's off the hook. Or Levi can tell him, no, you have a dog that's dangerous. You shouldn't have kept it around in the first place. We saw the Gemara, a person should not go ahead and be Megadol Kever Rabbi Shabesai. Rabbi saw the Gemara. So says, what's the din? Okay. Rav Zera, Toshma. Says Rav Zera, let's be pushed to the Shaila. So Rav Zera, Toshma. Right. What does Reb Meir say? The tam sheyihu hatinoikis memashmashin ba. The tinoikis should go ahead and be memashmashit. They learn out, guys. You know where the tinoikis is playing with it? Between its horns. The tinoikis is not, it's poking it between its horns. And the einoi negeach. And it doesn't go ahead what? And gore. In other words, what is the tinoikis? The child is the meshasa, guys. The tinoikis is a meshasa. He's an insider. He's shepherding with what? This ox. So he's making the ox to want to do damage, pashtus. Mashma hana geach. If the shore would do damage, you'd be chayiv. That the owner of the shore would be chayiv. So in this case, the tinoikis is Shimon, the owner of the shore is Ruvain, and pashtus, so we can make a diak that Ruvain would be chayiv. It's a beautiful diak from the Gemara, right? Guys are outside again. One more time. We have a case of Ruvain an owner, Shimon a meshasa, Levi a nizik. We have a case of a tinoikis being a meshana, Ruvain being an owner of an ox, and Levi being a nizik as a result of the ox. Yechayev. Why? Because the diak was, if it doesn't do anything, it returns to being a tam. Mashma, if it does do something, you be chayev, right? So l'chayra, you see, we can be pushed to the shaila. So Amar Abaya, mikitani nogach. Does it say that it gored after you play with it gored? Chayev. Dilma ha nogach loy havi tam. Maybe if it gores, it doesn't go back to being a tam. In other words, we want to. What's the diak? If it gores, you chayev. No, we want to know if it goes back to being a tam or not. So here's the diak. If it doesn't gore, then what? It goes back to being a tam. If it does gore, it's the same din as it was before, right? The same din it was before, but it's always a mu'id. So therefore, the whole purpose of this chepering is to see if it goes back to being a tam or not. So you can't make a diak over here. You be chayiv. The diak is that that it doesn't go back to be a tam. Ubahin negicha loy mechayiv, right? And maybe on that negicha, guys, you won't be chayiv. Excuse me, I said you chayiv. Maybe that negicha you won't be chayiv. You know why? Because it was mishasa. You chep it. So you want to go ahead and be poshet to shaila from the child being mishasa the ox. The fact that you're potter, if it right, because the fact that you're chayiv if it does damage, that's not true. If it shephers with it and it doesn't do anything, it's a tam. If it does do something, it's not a tam. But you won't be chayiv. Why? Because it didn't do it naturally. It was shepherded with. It was inside it. It was a mishasa. So therefore you have no raya. Pashma, let's try to bring another raya. The Gemara, the Sanhedrin that we saw yesterday. Shisa boy esakelev, shisa boy nachosh pata. If you incite a dog or you incite a snake, the inciter is pata. Grama ben izakin. My love pata mishasa v'chayev balakelev. The inciter Shimon is pata, but the balkelev Ruvain would be chayev. Says someone, no. Name of pata afa mishasa. Not only is Ruvain pata for sure because he didn't do anything, but afa mishasa, even though Shimon who did chepa, you are pata. Again, what's your diak? Your diak is Shimon's pata, mashma Ruvain's chayev. No, the chiddush is that of course Ruvain's chayev. He didn't do anything. The owner did nothing. But even the insider Shimon's also pata. But so you have no raya. Amar Rava, says Rava, im tim tzuloymar, if you're going to say on the other side, hameshasa kalbo shel chaver is chayev. What are you going to say? You're going to say that the owner is chayev, that he shouldn't have kept it around. In other words, that's the tzad of chiyuv. Remember, there's two tzadim. The tzad of patur is Ruvain can tell you what do they do. The tzad of chiyuv is what is you shouldn't have kept a dangerous animal around, an animal that was prone to do damage. So let's say like the second side, you shouldn't have kept an animal around that's prone to do damage. Let's say like that. You shouldn't have kept it around. Says the Gemara. Shiseyahu ba'atzmai. Let's say he goes ahead and mishasa it, and the owner is mishasa, right? And the kelev goes and does damage. Pata. Why? My time. What's the reason? Just 1 second. Let's say there's only 2 people here. There's no Levi. Reuven has an animal, right? Reuven has an animal. And that animal is incited by Shimon, and it damages Levi. We're going to the tzad that Reuven is chayev because he shouldn't have kept it around. What happens if there's only 2 people? Reuven and Shimon. Shimon incites the dog, and the dog bites Shimon. Instead of going to Levi, the dog is biting Shimon. So that's what it says over here. Im tim Sulaima, says Rava. Hameshasa kalbo shel chaveroi bichaveroi. Chayev, if you're going to say that if Shimon incites Reuven's dog against Levi, chayev, shisohu ba'atzmai. What about the shiso himself? What about Shimon himself? And he does that pata. He'd be pata. My timer. Kol mishana by inciting. Uba acha b'shina boy. And instead of inciting against somebody else, Levi, it bites the mishasa. You'll be pata. That's what he wants to say. Kol mishana uba acha b'shina boy pata. To incite an animal is a shinoi. You guys, it's keren. It's mishuna. The chi will be keren. Biting is keren, right? Now, usually when you incite a dog, it's not to bite you. So over here, you incited the dog ends up biting you, so it's a double shinoi. A, the act of inciting, and B, the fact that it bit you. What did we see earlier in the Masechta? Kol mishana ubacha v'shina by pata. Where did we see that? We saw it in the case of an animal lying down in Rishus Harabim, and an animal came along and kicked it. Lying down is a shinoi, kicking is a shinoi, is a told of Karen. We say yipata. We wanted to say they had the machlokes Rabbi and Rish Lakish. Amalera Papa Rava. Itmar Mishmei the Rish Lakish. Itmar the Rish Lakish Kavaseich. We have a brisa that Kol Mishana Bacha B'Shina B'Pata that if you Mishasa Shimon's Mishasa and the dog bites Shimon, that moving B'Pata. So I'm Rish Lakish because Rish Lakish is of the opinion. They paras Rishus Harabim. You have 2 paras Rishus Harabim. Achas revutza, one's lying down, which is one shinoi. The achas malechas, one's walking, which is normal. Ubata, and the one hamalechas, the one that's walking does a shinoi, a second shinoi, and it kicks per revutza, the first shinoi. Pturi pata. Why? Kol mashana ubacha b'shinoi pata. However, revutza malechas chayebes. Is the revutza is lying down, kicks the one that's walking, it's only one shinoi bichayev. So you want to say that what l'chayra a Reish Lakish would hold like what? Like Rava. Amle Rava Papa who Gufta said that Shimon would be chayev, says you have no right from Papa, from Paras. Ana behahi chiyuve mechayva. I'm mechayev, the one that kicks. I'm mechayev, the one that kicks, the one that lies down. In other words, it's not a good zushtel to my case. I'm mechayev, the one who kicks. Why? I can say to the one that who lying down can say to the one that kicked. Ki istacha reshusei, what do you have reshus to do? The seguya to walk over my animal. Levaute mi istacha reshus, but to go ahead and kick the animal, do you have reshus? In other words, I think he holds this like one shinoi. In other words, what would normal be if an animal lies down? The norm would be to walk on top of the animal, to trample the animal. But doing an act of kicking, regardless of who you do it against, is considered, this is my interpretation, is one shinoi. So it says Rava, I can hold over here that this is a double shinoi. One inciting, two inciting against myself. That clearly makes no sense. No one would go ahead and expect the dog to bite him when he incites it to bite, go get another guy. That's clearly, I hold Rabbi Yechayev. On the other hand, you want to bring me a raya from this para that's kicks one that's lying down, you have no raya, because the one that's lying down can say, listen, I didn't have a right for it to lie down, but you don't have a right for it to kick. It could have walked on it, but it kicked it. Oh, once it kicked it, then what? Then you be chayiv. So therefore, it's not a tzushtel to my case. Everyone should have a great day. Thank you for listening. Let's say a kapitel.